Hey guys, okay, sorry about that. I think hopefully you can now see the slide deck. I don't know if you can see me, but maybe I'll do something different next time where we're not on um, Facebook Live because it's a little weird. I'm gonna not lie. Hey Rebecca, thanks for letting me know you're there. Hey, thanks everybody for joining. It was fun. It was fun trying to get this all back together, but you can hear me all okay, hopefully. Awesome. Well, I will get started here because we're a little bit late getting started. But yeah, like I said, so I'm Sam. I'm the executive director of Raleigh Rescue Ranch. I'm here in our rescue office right now, and we're hoping to get these started depending on kind of the ask and the need for them. You know, if people want and like these, you know, we can do it on a weekly basis. I can answer questions, things like that, send them my way because I'd love to, you know, let you know kind of what I know and or just fun stories. Yeah, I know it's weird. It won't let me share my face and also the deck. So, yeah, we'll just go through the deck, I think, and then, yeah, we'll just, it's maybe next time, like I said, we'll do a Zoom meeting or something. But, so, kind of quick overview of things I wanted to go over. We're really a few things here. So, really like finding an auction, uh, uh, what you do to check in, when you actually go and view the horses and check them out, how bidding works, how you close out and purchase the horse, loading, because that can be fun. Oh, you can't hear John? Oh, let me see. Can anybody else hear me? Let me see if anybody. Okay, okay, good. Elaine hears me, so maybe John, you. Okay, good. Oh my gosh, this would be a very blonde moment kind of day if not. Thanks, guys. Okay, so yeah, so a couple things: loading, arriving home, what you do when you get home with your horsey, and then the first few weeks, and then also a little bit about online bidding too. Hey, McGalen. Okay, awesome. Thanks, everybody. So as I mentioned, this is my first Facebook Live, so it's trial by error here. Horse auctions. So, I always like to say horses are at auction for a reason. No matter how beautiful they seem and how, you know, wonderful and fantastic they look and appear, they are there because there is a reason. So majority of them are either, there's a couple reasons. So either they're injured, they could no longer work or be ridden. They have training or behavioral issues is a really common one. They're older than 20 years old, which is sadly the truth. A lot of people like to dump their older horses. And then, yeah, as I mentioned, the more attractive the horse is, especially if it's papered or registered by, like, you know, AQHA, APHA, things like that, the prettier it is. Normally, I've found the more problems it has. So your paints, your buckskins, palominos, the roan ones, the, you know, the gorgeous ones, at these regular auctions, and that's what I'm referring to, is just your run-of-the-mill, once-a-month horse auction. Normally, the prettier they are, the more kind of issues. So just be aware of that. Your plain bay is normally your safer bet. So, and I know, I think it was Rebecca had asked one question. Yeah, okay, I'll get to that one because she had some really good questions that she sent in. So finding an auction, the first step to finding an auction to go to, what I normally do is Either you find an auction that's local to you, like you pass it by on the road, or I normally just use our good old friend Facebook. I put it in the search bar. I search or ask local on local boards and say, hey, where's the local auctions? And normally there's one within like an hour of you. We're in Missouri here, so I always found one pretty local. In Illinois, there was a lot of local ones. So I don't know much about other states. I know there's a lot of auctions in Pennsylvania with a lot of horses that are in trouble, in Tennessee too. But yeah, out here we get a lot of auctions. So today we're going to be talking about your just run-of-the-mill once-a-month auction, not your registered or catalog auctions. So what those are, to clarify, are your they're normally horses that are registered. They normally have reserve prices on the horses. So, and they have a catalog that they present. And most of the time those go well above like meat market prices or a price that, us as a rescue would need to even attend, or go to, because they're normally going into good homes. So, we're talking about your, the auctions that the kill buyers are at. So, I also wanted to touch on your online auction. Online auctions, I try and stay away from like the plague. Those are like, there's ones called like horsebay.com, online horses, horsebidder.com, things like that. Big no-no for me because you can't even see the horse. I've heard of a lot of people doing auctions online, kind of like eBay format, and getting, a totally emaciated, lame horse, and then you're kind of stuck with it because how are you going to have any ramifications if once that horse arrives? So, do as you wish, but I would not do that. But yeah, that's how I find those. And then so you arrive. So the first step is to arrive. I normally get there about an hour or two early. If I've been before, I normally only need like about an hour, because just to kind of familiarize myself. But most of the time they run where they have tack first. Sometimes they'll sell used tack. Sometimes it will be new tack. That's a really great way to arrive early and kind of listen to the auctioneer's voice, kind of get a feel for your surroundings, kind of get comfortable. If you bring a buddy or friend, definitely have one of them like grab a seat, and just kind of settle in and just kind of see how it runs, because then you're not like looking to bid on horses. You could maybe even bid like on, I think I bought at my first auction, I bought a couple snaps and a halter, and then I was like, okay, I get how this works. This kind of is like a easy way into it versus spending thousands of dollars off the bat. And then let's see here. So then what did that one say? Tried to ask the auctioneer questions during all. Oh yeah, the button bought the horse. Oh Lord, yeah. Online auctions can be, yeah, a little sketchy, and I hope you didn't end up with a horse you didn't want. But another really good thing to mention is do not wear your best clothes. Don't go dressed up to the nines looking like you have a ton of money. If you look, I normally go in like kind of older jeans. I wear a baseball hat that, doesn't have my logo on it. I don't want people to know who I am, and I don't want them to kind of recognize me. Now, it's kind of hard because it's mainly male driven at auctions, so they will figure out who you are, but you try to keep a low profile. You don't want to be going out with like your diamonds and your, Rolls Royce or whatever, because they will see that and you'll look like money, so you will get bid up. Also, another great idea is to take a man with you. I know that sounds, not like our modern day thinking here, but again, it's very male driven. Most auctioneers are men. Most people that own the auction houses are men. Most kill buyers are men. They're all standing in the auction pit with the horses, and you will be bidding and placing your bid with them. And sadly enough, I often feel like when I'm bidding, they think they can bid me up because I'll make an emotional decision. But they're wrong. But, if you can have a man go with you, or you feel like they're taking advantage of you, then, have someone else bid for you and kind of change it up so that you don't have to. Then, okay, so then you check in. So check in, you go in the office. You have to show your ID to get your bidding number. They normally have to take down your address, and I believe you have to be 18 at most auctions to bid. And they also normally only accept cash or check, no credit cards. So cash or check is like the majority of them will accept that. And yeah, I normally do check so I can like write it down, but it's probably a good thing they don't accept credit card, because Lord knows we'd probably end up buying them all on credit. So then the fun part, you go back into the back, and you go and see the horses. So for regular auctions, most of the horses are in pens, as you can see in these pictures here. These are from auctions that I've been to. There's little Penny up in the right-hand corner that Debbie adopted, and that's where I saw her in a loose pen in the back, in the dark dungeon pen of the loose horses. Something to be aware of is that some horses at some auctions I've been to will be being ridden around, usually in the parking lot, on concrete, on gravel, on random places. So what I like to do is, before I go to the auction, sometimes a lot of the times they'll post some of the horses, the ridden horses especially, on their Facebook page to kind of drum up interest and get people to come out. So oftentimes, if you can't find the horse that's on the website that you came to look at specifically, kind of wander around, kind of take a peek outside. Sometimes you can see him being ridden around. So I've seen that happen a lot, and it's a bit of a circus. It's it's a bit it can be a bit intimidating. I'd definitely recommend going with a friend, or a couple of friends the first time. And make sure those friends are people that know what they're getting into, because it's emotional when you go back there. Some auctions are better than others. I've been to ones where I'm like, I left and I was like, I didn't need to bid on anything because the horses seemed fine, and people that were bidding high enough that the horses weren't at risk, and they looked like they were bidding for families, not like the kill buyer. Other auctions have been in the backwoods of nowhere, and I've been a little concerned for my safety, and the horses are a mess. So just be kind of aware where you're going. So each of the pens, they'll always have the horses tied in the pens, for the most part. So at the beginning in the entrance, like this little paint and these like halflingers on the left here, and that little white pony, that mama and foal, they're in their own pens, or they're tied with a buddy, or sometimes they're tied right next to a horse they don't even know, but they're tied up in their pens, and sometimes they'll have saddles on them, which will show that they're going to be ridden through the ring. Then there's also the loose pens. So in the center there's some pictures of the loose pens. These horses are just literally loose. So they're just kind of milling around in there, and none of them ever have any water. None of them ever have any food. So, and they normally, like horses can, our auction, I believe horses can get dropped off at 9 a.m. and the horse part of the auction starts at 6 p.m. and it normally doesn't get done until 9, 10 p.m. So they are standing there all day without food and water, and sometimes they can get kind of crabby. So, just be aware of that. Very rarely, I think maybe 3 or 4 times, there's been a person like standing next to the pen that knows anything about the horse. Usually these people will tell you a version of the truth. So every person I've talked to at an auction has lied to me. So take that for what you like. Some elaborate, some had elaborate stories. Yeah, I had one little horse that I got from an auction, and he had this whole spiel of a story, which, maybe it was some part true, but later in the retraining process or the evaluation process, I was like, I don't know if that guy told me a lick of the truth. So, quite frankly, I normally just don't talk to anybody. I just kind of, I know what I'm looking for, and I know, for the most part, how to make an evaluation, and I don't need to talk to anybody because they're just going to tell me that the horse is, the most fantastic horse because they want to sell that horse for the top dollar. Like, these people are not your friends. They want to make money off of you. So if they can convince you that the horse, poops out money, then they're going to. So, just be aware of that. So sometimes they have papers. If they're registered and they have papers, sometimes those attached to the like gate in front of the pen. Sometimes those papers don't actually belong to that horse. So it might say, this is, AQHA registered something, and later you find out that that's not the horse at all. So again, take those for what you will. But at these kind of auctions, if they're not like a registered horse auction, it's it's hit or miss. So then what I do is when I see a horse that I like the look of, I go in the pen with it. So you want to be very careful that you don't get kicked, essentially. If hopefully the horse is in a pen by itself, that's less risky. They're pretty rare that they're in pens by themselves. They're normally like tied in these pens next to another horse. So you're having to squeeze behind butts and, it's mares and geldings and all kinds of things tied up together. So just be really aware of that. If you don't feel comfortable going in the pen with the horse, I wouldn't bid on it. I don't bid on a horse unless I can personally pick its feet up and check its age. And the reason for that is because with horses, with general like riding horses, I can feel when I pick their legs up if they have, stiffness, if they like will not pick up their foot. I can feel their whole leg, see if they have lumps and bumps or bruises and things or something that they're upset about when I go to lift their leg up. I can kind of articulate their joints a little bit and kind of see if there's resistance there. Big one for, oops, that's Finn. He says hi. For Belgian drafts, the big one, and for some of our other drafts, you always want to check their feet for what's called canker. That's a big one. It essentially looks like cauliflower on the horse's hoof, and the only way to get rid of it is by you have to cauterize that portion of the hoof to remove it, and they have to wear medical plates, and essentially it's like a huge, $10,000 plus procedure. So I always check now. I always try and pick up their feet, especially with the drafts. A lot of them aren't used to picking up their feet for people, so that's also a great thing to check because most of them are Amish owned, and they're used to having their feet done in stocks and things. So if they pick up their feet, then it's like, okay, awesome, you passed that. And if they don't, then I'm like, okay, that's pretty normal, but something I'll take note of mentally. Before you go to an auction, learn how to tell a horse's age by checking its teeth. Sometimes, depending on the auction, they'll tell you the horse is one age and it's not. So get a good idea of how to tell horses' ages. I might do a clinic sometime here at the ranch where we can look at different horses and you can guess their age, and then I can tell you how right or wrong you are. It's helpful with the thoroughbreds because we know exactly how old they are, or like the registered ones because we have a birth date on them. So just get really good at that and check their teeth. And also another reason for that is because sometimes they're missing teeth. Sometimes their teeth are like filed down to nubs, and if that horse is skinny, looking at it, it's going to be a lot of money to get that horse back up to a healthy weight, and it will likely need, liquid food. Just really good things to check. You want to take a good look at their legs. That's a lot of, there's normally, again, there's something's on the horse, or something's, it's either physical or behavioral. Look at their legs, look for lumps and bumps, check the horse's eyes. So you want to do the menace test, where you bring your hand up to the horse's eye and you kind of move it back and forth towards their eye. They should blink and shut their eye. If they don't, they're likely blind in that eye. So another great thing to learn and do, and also, check the eye in general, make sure they're not cloudy, any kind of, ulcers or anything that looks like it might be suspicious, or just things that, if you're okay with handling those things, then great. But if you get home, and you find out the horse is blind in one eye, then you might be disappointed. So, just something to try out. I've had many horses that are blind in one eye and they're totally fine. I know there's horses out there that jump, and like Endo the blind, who he's blind in both eyes and he's amazing, but it's not always what you want. If they have a saddle on, like this one in the picture, a lot of them will have saddles on them. Pick up that saddle pad, kind of take a look. This horse in this paint in this picture, he looks pretty chunky and like, pretty good condition to the naked eye. But if you saw one that looked like it might be skinny, kind of pick that up and kind of look around, because they will try to hide things under the saddle, like sway back, like, ribs and the backbone showing, things like that. So just give them as much of a good look over as you can. The issue with a lot of the time is that auctions are very dark and dingy, so sometimes it can be hard to actually get a good look at the horse. I do not go in the loose pen at all costs. It's too dangerous to me, and you could get trampled very easily. So I do not recommend going in these loose pens with all these horses that are just, they often don't know each other. What I do is I normally bring my cell phone, and I use my flashlight app on my phone, and I shine it in and see if I can get a good look at the horse, and zoom in as much as I can, take a flash photograph, and then look at the photograph. And sometimes, like this pen in this picture in kind of the center here, you can't even see the ones in the center. Sometimes you can sneak down the other side of the pen to look at the horses, but at the end of the day, these ones that are in this loose pen, like you get what you get. So I just personally don't feel comfortable walking in there with that many horses and not having them tied at all. And then I take a photograph of the tag number. So if I'm thinking I'm going to bid on a horse or interested in a horse, I take a picture of its tag number. That's where all these ones, the photos came from. And then I start a note in my phone of some little, one sentence or so about the horse, its age, pretty, let me pick up its feet, seemed resistant on this leg, look out for X, Y, and Z when it comes through, so that I can just kind of make a mental note, because some auctions there's like 50, 60, hundreds of horses, so it's hard to keep track of them all. Then you want to get a seat. So depending on the size of the auction, and I always recommend going to an auction before you're going to plan to bid an auction. But I've been to some auctions and you've been easily able to get a seat. Other auctions, you have to be like squeezed in there trying to sit down. So, and people don't normally leave until the ridden horses are done. So, if you have a friend or someone who doesn't need to go in the back, or someone that can save a seat for you, that is awesome. People do not respect the whole let me put my jacket down here and that saves my seat rule. That doesn't normally apply. And so just kind of be aware of the timing of when you're back there. I always like to give myself more time so I can get a good seat. And make sure that you can also see the auctioneer, and if you do raise your hand, that the auctioneer auctioneer would be able to see you. Like, don't sit behind a post or something. And then I like to bring snacks, and I try not to leave during the horse section at all. I try to go to the bathroom beforehand because I'm in it for the whole thing most of the time. Because I mean, it's really exciting to me, but also, yeah, I don't want to miss any of it because it's kind of like a crazy experience. So then bidding begins. So I think I had a different slide here. Boop, boop, boop. Yeah, so bidding. So this is what you'll often see. There's like 100 men inside this tiny little pen. This auction that I used to go to in Southern Illinois was a concrete pen. It's like not even half the size of a round pen, and it had shavings on top. So yeah, kind of interesting. And then there was always a ton of men inside the pen, and my gut instinct tells me that just is so that the horse, like, they can't really do too much to show up any of the issues that it has. So bidding begins, and it starts fast. So kind of hopefully your horse that you want to bid on doesn't come through first. And hopefully if it doesn't, then listen to the auctioneer again, get a feel for their cadence. And then at most they can trot maybe a few paces. They'll sometimes do like these tricks with the horses, like they'll bring out bull whips and they'll whip them next to them and crack them. They'll stand on their backs. They'll put tiny children on these horses on a concrete floor, and you're like, oh my Lord, it's just it's a show. And one of our other auctions, he used to like to hang on the horses' tails and have the people like ride around, and he would drag behind the horse to show how calm it was and how it wouldn't kick them. Yeah, you'll see it all, and yeah, you kind of have to just sit there and take it all in. And then, let's see. Yeah, that's another big thing. The pen is not big enough, and you will likely not see that horse trot enough to detect any lameness. It's nearly impossible to see lameness unless it's like 5 out of 5, like, one-legged lame. So, yeah, it's really, that's where the risk comes in, is that you really don't know what you're going to get until like a day later. And some backwards kind of auctions I've been to, they have larger pens, but sometimes you have to be careful at those. Like, I wouldn't sit right up next to the pen, because I went to one and it turned into a rodeo, and the horse almost went through the panel and like into the audience. So yeah, so that's fun. And then, okay, so sometimes they'll bring in one horse at once. So in the beginning, they bring in like their nicest, fanciest horses. So they'll normally bring in the riding ones and the best looking ones first to get everybody excited. And then they will, but then as it goes on, they will get through all of the ridden horses, and then they will do the non-riding horses. And that's when people kind of normally start to clear out. They, if people don't want a non-riding horse or a loose pen horse, then they'll tend to leave. And at that time, and something about bidding there is that they will sometimes bring in more than one horse. So if they do that, sometimes I've seen them bid, like they'll be like, okay, it's a pair of horses, you have to bid on the pair, like a driving pair or like a team of like, say, halflingers or something. Or they might take the first one and take bids, and then they'll allow bids for the pair. Or I've also seen them take bids for the first one, and then they've said, okay, who wants to buy the other one at the same price? So it's kind of, again, kind of crazy. So if there's a pair of horses in a pen together, just be aware that they might bid them off together, and so you might have to buy both if you want one of them. So just kind of know that. And then once all the ridden horses are done, then the loose horses come through, and that's just a real mixed bag of horses. And they normally send them in about 2 or 3 at a time. And normally they call out, they'll be like, okay, we're going to bid on the paint. And then they'll start bidding on the paint. And then once they're done with that one, then they'll be like, okay, next this Belgian mare. And then once they've bid everybody, and they've gotten, everybody purchase, then they just shoo them out, and then the next ones run literally into the pen. That's kind of fun, and those ones always look the most terrified, bless them. So yeah, watch others and see when you're ready to bid, you want to raise your hand and make sure the auctioneer sees you, because it happens really fast, and sometimes they don't see you. So they tend to have, like, these guys that are standing in the arena here, or the little pen, they are normally spotters. So they like will call out. They'll be like, hey, hey, she's bidding over there. But if they don't see you, yell out. Be like, hey, hey, like, I'm over here. Like, I want to bid. And don't be afraid to, because if you don't, you won't get the horse. And on the ridden ones, I always try not to bid first unless no one else bids. But even then, usually if that's like the case, and the auctioneer will normally reduce the bid and start going lower, like they'll bid against themselves. So never be the first one to bid. It's never a good idea. Don't wait too long either. So if the bids are going and it's going really quickly back and forth, it gets quicker as the auction goes on, because less people will bid on the less desirable horses. So, it goes very quick for the loose pen horses, because they normally are like, your $300 horses or something. So, just be aware that, those ones you might need to step in, quicker, because you might miss it, because they're just really looking at that point normally at the kill pen buyer, and they want to go. The biggest thing about going to an auction is always have a firm budget. If you don't trust yourself, don't take the cash with you. Leave it at home. Don't take your checkbook. Just simple things like, make sure that you have enough money to spend, and that you're not going to make an emotional decision about it. And like for example, like I normally will just take cash and leave my checkbook at home. And then if you go often, like more than once or twice, they will start to become familiar with you. And if you're one of those people that like just keeps going and doesn't seem to care about like how high they push you, they will keep pushing you. And a lot of the times the kill buyers will in fact push you because they are helping the auction house. The auction house gets normally about a 20% commission on the sale price of the horse. So their buddies, if they can get you to bid more and pretend to be bidding against you, they're going to. I did that one time with this guy in Illinois, and I ended up walking away because he pushed me beyond my budget, and then he got really upset about it, and they didn't do it again to me. So, that's a risky game to play of cat and mouse, but at the same time, it kind of showed him like, hey, you can push me, but then he ended up being the one to win the horse. So, just never try to not get emotional about it. That's the hardest thing to do. Don't let them pressure you. And it's a high stress situation. Your heart rate's going to be racing. Just try to be okay with it. And also, if I'm at an auction and the horse gets to, the multiple thousands, and I look around and I'm like, okay, I'm bidding against someone that's, a family, or looks like, I'm bidding against someone that's in the crowd, then I'll bow out and stop, because that's less likely for, the kill buyers are going to be in the pen standing near the owner of the auction house. They're like normally one of these guys in the pen right there in that picture. So they're not normally in the crowd. So that's good to know too. So if you're trying to like rescue like we do, then you don't want to bid against people that are actually trying to help horses from the community. And then sometimes when you win, so be okay with walking away. That's the biggest thing too. Know your budget, just the basics, but it can be stressful when it's a live horse. And then when you win, sometimes they'll hand you right then and then the coggins, sometimes the papers, sometimes you pick those up later in the office. Legally, they're supposed to have a coggins on every horse that comes through the auction house. I maybe receive 50% of those coggins papers. So good to know, it's like it doesn't always happen. Online bidding. Okay, so You can at some places nowadays, and during COVID, what happened was they started allowing you to bid online. So they'll post a live stream like this of the auction house floor, and you can call in and get a number and bid online. I would only do this if you can go to the auction and see those horses live and in person first, because otherwise, again, you are seeing from normally a very fuzzy little screen, and it often cuts out. Like these auction houses are normally like metal buildings that have terrible Wi-Fi. So, if you can go, that's best. If you can't go, but what I'm thinking of possibly doing is going to our local auction and then checking out the horses and then going home and bidding online. The benefit to that is that they can't see you. So it's hard for them to bid you up because they can't see who's bidding because you're calling in on a phone line. So, but yeah, that's a bit more, and sometimes you can lose the horse because the internet goes out from the auction house. So that's a little bit more kind of advanced, but good for hiding your face. Um, okay, and then you want to close out. So you've won the horse. So then you go to the front office, and you check out. So they'll give you the Coggins. Funny story on this Coggins in the picture. I picked up the Coggins and it said Hoover Mule Sale. So the horse that I got from that auction had literally had its Coggins done at an auction 2 days before. So it'd been carted from one auction to the next, and then they try to sell it for a higher price. So that happens very, very often. So good to know. So yeah, you close out at the office, check out, you pay for the horse, and then you always want to go with a friend or someone that can help you with the trailer, because you literally have to just go back there and halter the horse and walk it outside in the dark. It's always dark because it's always, auctions always at nighttime, and load this horse that you don't know at all. So I always pack some halters, especially if I end up, bidding on the loose pen horses. They don't come with halters. So that's a fun fact. I learned that the hard way. I ended up having to buy one from the auction house because I didn't have a halter, and I just assumed that they would have a halter, but nope. So pack a halter. Rope halters work great because you can be adjustable to different sizes, especially, for your drafts or, your smaller horses. Those work really well. Loading's usually in the back. You want to go with the horse trailer, or take a friend or someone that has a trailer, because you want to get them out of there that night. They've literally been there all day. They might have been like this mare was at an auction the day before. So when did they eat? When did they get to drink? Probably not all day at least. So I never leave them overnight. Like weird things can happen to your horse. So take them home, go with a trailer. So what you normally do is you go in the back, and you go find your horse, you walk it out, and then sometimes there'll be a guy there and you show your bill of sale ticket to them that says, paint mare number 123, and then they verify that with the tag on their hind end, and then they say okay, and then you load it up. I've also been to auctions where there was nobody there and it was a free-for-all, so don't really know how that works, but and then yeah, you're in the dark. You're normally in a parking lot on concrete, so make sure you have a very good hold of that lead rope. If the horse tends to act spicy or in any way doesn't seem to want to load, they have these long chutes where they can help you load, and that's how they load the loose horses. Is they'll you'll back up your trailer to this chute, and then they'll kind of shoo them in with flags and things, and so yeah, when in doubt, just be like, hey, like I need help loading, and let them help you. And another good thing is to bring like a flag, because you're essentially just wanting to get the horse in the trailer. You're not trying to do a training session then and there, and flags can help kind of just like spur them to jump in the trailer. And then yeah, have a helper. Just a, trailering safety tip, never tie the horse to the trailer until you've got the door closed. Hold the horse in the trailer, have your buddy close the door, you attach the horse, then you go to the door and say, hey, please let me out, and then they'll let you out. Don't lock your buddy in the trailer with the horse that they've never met, but at the same time, make sure you have it closed so the horse can't back out and kick it open, because if a horse sees daylight when they're tied up, then they most likely will back up, and then they'll panic because they're tied. So just some fun trailering tips. Be careful with dividers. A lot of these horses will be transported in stock load trailers, sometimes loose. Sometimes they don't know what dividers are. Something simple as just asking the horse to step over when they're scared and panicky. They can kick you. I've had a horse try and kick me before. So yeah, if you just have one horse, just stick them in there loose. They'll turn around like Penny did here. They'll be fine, or if you want to tie them, then tie them from the outside. But I would say don't bother with dividers or like your, most trailer safe techniques. Don't worry about leg wraps and all that kind of stuff. Like just load them up and get them out of there. So then, yeah, and if anybody has any questions about any of these kind of steps to getting your horsey from auction, let me know in the chat. Arriving home. So when you get home, biggest thing is you want to quarantine. So this can be really difficult because it depends on your facility and your setup. But a lot of times, because they're all in the same breathing space, we all know now what quarantine looks like for humans. So same sort of things. You want to quarantine and give them their own pen. They should not be in the same breathing space, so not in the barn with other horses that can breathe the same air, because strangles is a thing. And you want to unload them and take them directly to their stall. So before you leave to the auction, you want to make sure that, if you're taking your cash with you and you're taking a trailer, you're probably going to come home with a horse. So have a stall ready for them so you don't have to deal with it when you arrive. Have hay and water ready. Make sure that hay is just kind of your basic grass hay, because again, they haven't probably eaten and drank all day. So if you give them rich alfalfa, you give them grain, they might colic. And I've had one colic on just alfalfa. So you might think you're being kind and nice to them, but just give them basic stuff, because that's probably all they've been used to is like, really crappy, dusty, moldy hay. So don't give them that, but don't give them your best hay, and then slowly introduce these things, because a lot of them haven't had good quality nutrition, definitely no grain. Let them loose in their stall without a halter. Don't leave a halter on ever in a stall or in a field unless it has a breakaway, and observe them. You want to watch them for at least an hour. Go away, come back if you can. It's normally late, but what I'll do is I'll put them in there. I'm excited, my adrenaline's high. I'll hang out with them for a little while, and then I'll go in the house and get ready for bed, go back out in my PJs and just be like, peek on them. I have cameras now set up in my stall, so I don't have to do that, but you want to watch for signs of colic, know what those signs are, have Banamine on hand, have a sedative on hand, because sometimes these horses are carted from auction to auction, and it's just really stressful. We had the last two that we had come in, they colicked, so be aware of that. I find that the ones that worry more, like your thoroughbreds, sadly, tend to be the ones that show signs of colic. Penny here could care less. She was just dug right into her hay bag and was a happy camper. Quarantine for at least 2 weeks, ideally 30 days, and not same breathing space, separate buckets, no touching your new horse and then another horse. You can quarantine if you get multiple horses from the auction. You can quarantine them together. That's okay, because they've already been breathing the same air. No sharing of grooming tools. We got one in and it had mites, fun things like that. fungus things can spread through grooming tools, and clean their stall last, fill their water buckets up last, and yeah, just use like, as sanitary of procedures as you can. Normally, they will, I see a lot of them just get a common cold. They'll be kind of depressed, lethargic, get snotty nostrils, and then they normally get over it, by like week 3 or so. But those normally appear like the end of week 1, maybe going into week 2. So definitely at least a 2-week, if not a month, quarantine. And yeah, and they sometimes are really thirsty because they haven't had any water in a while. And then your first few days, so clean out your trailer. And if it's not yours, then offer to clean out your friend's trailer, top to bottom. Scrub it with Simple Green as a great one. We used to use that in the foaling stalls at a quarter horse breeding ranch. Scrub it, and make sure you soak hay nets as well in it. Disinfect them, because you don't want to put another horse back in there, or say the next day you have to haul your horse because of an emergency. You want to make sure that your trailer is clean and sanitary. Most of our horses, they're all vaccinated, but they can still get, EHV is a really common one that they can get really easily if they're not vaccinated every 6 months. Strangles, nasty. So, yeah, exactly. Rebecca said, yeah, she didn't believe in quarantine. Like, what? Like, hopefully she believes in it now after COVID, but good Lord. And then you will, let's see. So, okay. One of the biggest pains that if anybody knows how to get these off, let me know. But the regular horses that are ridden, or the higher dollar horses, they'll have their tags on them and they're easier to remove. The ones that are loose pen horses normally have their tags, the little number tag, literally glued to their hind end. So in the past, what I've done, I've tried WD-40, I've tried oil, I've tried all different kinds of things, but nothing has worked to like release that sticky. So normally I just end up using my clippers or scissors to cut it off, because if you try and pull it on their hind end, you're like right in the kicking zone. So just know that you might have a short hair patch there for a little bit, because and that's okay. But yeah, if anybody knows of how to get those off without ripping the hair off, then or cutting it off, then let me know, because I'd love to know. Day 2, that's fun. You'll know if they were drugged. So bute will wear off. Bute normally wears off 24 hours. The sedative will be worn off long before then. And they sedate, and you can't really tell. A lot of the horses in there, you would think they're sedated and they're fine because they're just so depressed. Other horses, they're sedated with ACE, which, like, ACE, you can, like, some people still ride horses with ACE when they're recovering from injuries. Sometimes you can tell from their eyes, but like I have personally, I have a pretty good amount of knowledge about horse health, and it is really hard for me to tell if they're sedated just enough to cover up discomfort or an issue like bucking or rearing or something like that. But yeah, bute will wear off, and that's when day 2 your lameness will appear. So yeah, then you'll know. That's when I knew that the guy that had told me that he was great was lying to me. Yeah, people drug, they definitely do it, and I don't really know. Sometimes I question like how, because the horses are there all day, but I know they have. And I've had 3 so far that I know have been drugged by either a pain reliever or a sedative. So yeah, day 2 is kind of fun. It's like, what did I actually get? Then, so if they, they don't seem to have any issues, then week 1, you want to go very, very slowly. What I do is I do all groundwork, all round pinning, and I start them from day 1 and check out where they have their holes. I am looking to find why that horse was at that auction, and that's, you want to try and find that hole in their training on the ground, so to keep yourself safe before you climb aboard. So make sure that you have a pretty good knowledge of, how to train your horse, how to spot signs and signals, how to, see if they're telling you, hey, that hurts. Hey, I'm not comfortable with that. Hey, I'm actually really green. And the first time someone rode me was in the pen at the auction house, because that's happened before. Yeah, so make sure, that's one of the things, like, when I'll get on, I will start writing, and then something will appear, and I'll be like, okay, yep, that's why she was there or he was there. If your horse shows any signs of sickness, please don't ride them. Let them get well, of course. I know you're probably excited to work with them and stuff. Just take care of them, but don't ride them, if they have a cold or anything. As they might see, and it starts out like with lethargy, so you might think that they're just a really quiet horse, but that might also mean that they're fighting something off, and then a couple days later, that's when you see that snotty nose. So, and it's never a bad thing, of course, to have a vet out to do a vet check and a health check on them, and kind of see how they are. But yeah, expect them to have at least a common cold. And then week 2, that's when I personally like to vaccinate. I don't like to vaccinate right away, because if they are colicky, if they are sick, like, I don't want to bombard their system with a vaccine right away. So I let them settle in for a week, and then as long as they don't show any signs of sickness, then I'll vaccinate. And then of course, if you have a vet, like, they can do that. And then I also deworm at that point, because a lot of these horses haven't been dewormed in a long time. I'll also get a Coggins done in my name, because, fun fact, if ever you don't have a bill of sale that states the horse's name on it from an owner, then a Coggins will hold up in a court of law as being owned by you. So you could say, oh, well, I have the Coggins, and the Coggins is in my name. So yeah, so that's another fun fact. Like, get the Coggins, get the horse in your name. Same visit with the vet. And then also have the vet check their teeth. I can't tell you, like, all of the horses, it seems, that I've gotten from auction, besides your babies, have needed their teeth being floated. And oftentimes that's why a lot of the ones that are skinny are underweight, is because they've never had their teeth floated. I had a 10-year-old little pony, and he had never had his teeth floated. So luckily he was, like, he's fatter than a tick. But yeah, just have them check their teeth. Likely they'll need that done. And then farrier care, of course, too. They normally are long, they're overgrown. Have your farrier out, and kind of schedule that. If you think you're pretty sure you're going to be going to an auction, the sooner you can get your vet and your farrier out there to do all this stuff, the better. And then, yeah, what else? So that's pretty much everything as far as I could think of. Let me know if there's any questions. Oops, I went the wrong way. Yeah, but pretty much, enjoy your horse, once you've gotten through all that stuff, and maybe you'll be the lucky one, that your horse has no issues. I personally haven't had any horses that I've gotten from auction that haven't had some kind of issue, or someone's tried to hide something. So, go at your own risk. That's why we try to go to auctions and rescue from auctions, because then we don't have to, pay these kill buyers to become filthy rich off of our money, when we could just buy them from the auction in the first place. Yeah, that is the ideal, but it can be tricky, because they can learn who you are, and then they'll bid you up. So just be aware of that. Yeah, any questions? I know we're kind of over that 9 o'clock hour, but I know we started kind of late because I had to restart it. And yeah, and like I said, I really want to do more of these again. If there's, I think it was Rebecca, someone mentioned wanting to do a part 2 where we go over like first interactions, things like that. I know she had some questions. She said, how much can you really tell from seeing the horse before the auction, and how it is ridden in the ring. Not much. Like you really can't tell much at all. Sadly, and if they're drugged, they could be in pain. Like we had one horse that we got, and I'm like 100% sure that that was the first time it had been ridden, and this guy hopped on it bareback. Yeah, so you don't really know what you're getting. The safest bet to me is like this one in this picture here below the heart, like this bay, just plain bay little mare or gelding. It's like those ones. But this funny story about this gorgeous paint in the bottom right hand corner turned out to be a bucking horse, like a rodeo bucking horse, bronc horse, and this girl bit on him because she was like, oh my gosh, he's gorgeous. And he was a stallion, and he pretty much like bit her like arm when she went in to try and catch him. And then they owned that horse. So that's another thing. If the horse looks like, it's might be a lot more for you to handle, then just be aware that, then you own that horse, and then it's then the fun begins. So it's definitely not without its own risks. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, I don't put any weight in the background story at all, personally. I'm pretty good about reading people, but yeah, I don't trust what they tell me. Do you really pay more for color and looks? Absolutely. People pay a lot more for color and looks. And like the draft crosses will always go for a lot more. And they're just really popular right now. So, yeah, let's see what else. Deal breakers. Physical condition, red flags. Yeah. Anything that I'm just like, it depends on what we're going for. Sometimes I'll go to these auctions with a kind of horse in mind. Like most of our adopters want your, kid safe trail horse, so I'll try and find one that, looks like it would be sound enough for trails. But I don't tend to go to these auctions. I've never gone to these auctions to look for like a performance horse, like a jumper, dressage horse, or anything high level. Your trail horses, that's mostly normally what they've done before. So and then there's also a lot of Amish horses there at the one we went to, like Amish drafts. The Belgian drafts are normally Amish owned. They're normally always in their like early teens, like 14, 15, because they that's when they normally kind of get rid of them and get the new younger version. And then they also have a lot of saddlebreds at these auctions because they'll use those for like pulling the carts and things. So those ones are normally in really bad shape. So oh, cool, acetone. I'll try that. Have you ever oh, will I do barrel racing clinics? Well, I've never barrel raced before, so I'd love to. I want to try and learn and do that with Arthur. But yeah, I think it'd be a while before I actually taught anybody, because Lord knows if I'm actually any good at that. But I can do clinics on Liberty work, Liberty training for sure. I'm thinking that would be a really fun one to do. I'm going to do ones on just like trailer loading, like trouble horses, because that is often a hard one for people. And then yeah, any and all suggestions that you'd love to see, or like evaluating a horse when it comes in, from day one, like first touching a horse to see how they're going to be and how we'll kind of move forward from there. Feeding horses, all the different kinds of feeding and feeding to gain weight, things like that, because that's a common thing, and they often need to gain weight. And our thoroughbreds are normally kind of on the skinny side, and they have crazy metabolism. So what else do we got in here? Yeah, any auction do's and don'ts? Yeah, I mean, I just try to be kind of quiet and like not have people notice me, to be honest, until I want to bid, because like the more people notice you, like the more they might bid you up, or kind of figure out who you are. And then they know that we're a rescue, so we're likely going to pay. So, yeah, just things to just try and be quiet and kind of blend into the background. It's not the place to go with your new outfit on. um, and okay, yeah, if you bid and you see something that you don't feel or like or uneasy about taking home. So, if you bid it and you win it, you've bought it. So, yeah, like that can happen. Yeah, like the horse, you can bid and then, as the horse is leaving the arena, it like freaks out or something. That's your horse. You just bought it. And if you don't, if you just suddenly like ran out of there, like they have your driver's license. So, or your driver's license information. So, I don't know what would happen really. But I wouldn't do it, and I definitely wouldn't go back to that place, if you just skipped out on the horse, because people are going to be very mad at you because their horse is, because the person that's bought the horse there has thought they've sold the horse to you for that amount of money, and then the auction house is expecting that commission. So, yeah, I would not do that. Sadly, yeah, if you see something wrong at the last minute, then, it's kind of one of those things that like hopefully you can fix the issue, whatever it is, but don't skip out. There is sometimes with some of the riding horses, then when like nobody bids on the horse, or if the person selling the horse like knows the auctioneer, they'll sometimes be there kind of in the ring, and like they'll look over and be like, oh, like, are you okay with letting it go for that low? And sometimes that gets tricky, because sometimes the person will be like, say the horse got like $1,000.
One sec.
Oh, that's Siri. No, thank you, Siri. I don't need you.
I know.
Oh, okay. Now she's talking to me. I don't know how to make her go away. No, Siri, please leave. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so sometimes they'll be like, oh, I'll let it go for, 1,500 or something. And then everybody in the whole place is quiet and staring at you, waiting for you to respond as to if you're going to take their deal. And like, I've done that once where I was like, well, I'll go, like I live bid against that owner right there in front of, 50 people, which is a little intimidating. So, yeah, that's kind of fun. That sometimes happens. So, yeah. And if you go home empty-handed, that's okay. Do not feel bad about that. There's one every single month. There's multiple auctions. I think there's like 3 a month on all different weekends in our area, within driving distance. So there will be other horses. I never feel bad about going home empty-handed, because normally that means that either there weren't horses that needed to get saved, or they pushed me above my budget, and I'd prefer to go home empty-handed with money in my pocket than not. So yeah, so I don't see any more questions here, but I'll probably wrap this up pretty soon so everybody can have the rest of their Saturday evening. But next time I'll maybe do it where you guys can see me, and maybe we'll go that way so we don't have a deck. But I wanted to share all these fun pictures of all the auctions I've been to. It's definitely an adrenaline rush, if you want to have go see a show and you're have thick skin, then go. Definitely go before you take your money with you. And yeah, and don't take the friend that, is going to suddenly bid on a horse and win the horse. Don't take the friend that's going to, be in the back, bad mouthing people, or being like, oh my gosh, look at this horse, it's so skinny, or likewise, don't take the friend that's like drooling over the horse, because then people are going to be watching you and your behavior. So the more interested you seem in the horse, the more they're going to know that you're going to bid on it, and they're likely you're going to pay a good amount. So again, use a low profile, go in disguise, don't let people know who you are, and don't let people know that you're going. and good luck. Hopefully you find a horse, hopefully you help a horse out. There are a lot of these horses that need extra help. Be prepared. I guess my last statement is know that you will probably spend about double of what you pay for the horse at the auction on its follow-up care and possible training. So have enough in your budget for all of those kind of things. But yeah, best of luck, everyone. And, feel free anytime to reach out to me. I always try to respond to messages and things, and let me know if you're going to go, or if you're local, like I'm going to start going to the local one. So come along with me, and we can experience it together. But it was lovely chatting with you guys. And hope you all have a good evening. But hopefully that was informative. You guys take care, and thank you so much.